Leading organizations have cracked the code. They have integrated technology and business. They are using new technologies and agility to drive efficiency and innovations. They are also moving from traditional transactional vendor relationships towards real business partnerships. This discussion is part of Built on Trust series, in which we deep dive on strategic partnerships, what those strategic partnerships are, and how strategic partnerships create and provide a competitive advantage for the organizations. I'm Jari Välimäki, and today I have a very special guest with me, Janne Puhakka, Vice President of IT and Digitalization at Glaston, and I'm really happy to have you, Janne, here, because I know that you are a real thought leader in this area. I mean, you have worked in the client organizations, not only in Glaston, but also Telia, and you have been in the partner side, but you have also been strategic advisor for different organizations when they have built strategic partnerships. So I'm super happy that you are here today with me, and we discuss strategic partnerships. So I actually read from Glaston's website that your mission is to make glass outstanding. I mean, standing out from the competition. I noticed that you are delivering, of course, machinery, technology and expertise to your client organizations. Obviously, quality is important for you. Sustainability is important for you, but as an introduction, could you a little bit talk about Glaston's and your own priorities?
Yeah, thanks, Jari, and thank you for having me here, and thank you for the kind words. Pleasure to be here. Regarding Glaston overall, we are the company listed here in Finland, and revenue is about 200 million and 800 people all over the world. And like you said, machinery business for glass manufacturers for these machines that we're making, plus the services business included. I would say the main priorities, because the industry for us has been very traditional, so selling CapEx, selling machines and so forth, but I think the industry slowly is turning into so that we need to build in services, even automate the machines that we can remotely monitor and even drive. So for us, for example, our customers, the three main components for their cost are energy, raw material, and then of course people. And for all those three components, it's a scarce resource at the moment. And if we can get a win for both, it will be a benefit for both parties. So that's our kind of like grand code.
Sounds great. How about your ICT and the digitalization priorities? What are important things that you are driving at the
well, if I continue if I continue from the business priorities and short term, it's the service revenue growth, and also the customer lifecycle management, and that is really digitalization as such. So that those are also ICT priorities. Secondly, short term is our growth in Asia. So we are wrapping up our Asian business definitely there, which brings a lot of ICT demands as such regarding networks capacity and also our target platforms that we need to implement there. So ERPs and CRMs and stuff, and that's what we are doing at the moment, rolling it out and ramping down some of the factories that we don't continue the business there, like we have stated in Switzerland, for example. So short term for ICT. Target platforms, rolling those out. Master data management is really important for our company at the moment in order to build a foundation for future activities related to AI and some other stuff. And also some compliance things regarding security, and NIS2 is important for us from the business continuity and security governance point of view at the moment.
But it sounds like that you have cracked the code. So basically, you have been able to combine business and IT, and you work very closely together with the business from the IT and the digital perspective. Would you agree?
It has grown closer at the moment. Of course, there's always room for improvement, and then of course, if you think of the whole services from Glaston related to our customers as well. So there's room to improve. And I would say that this OT and IT part is getting closer all the time. So there we need to cooperate together with our business and taking part of those customer discussions, which we already are. Actually, there were a couple this week as well.
Sounds great. But if we move actually to discussing, strategic partnerships, so, what is for you, strategic partnership? What does it actually, mean in practice? It's like a nice buzzword, but what does it actually mean in practice?
Well, overall, there's a few things. It takes time, first of all. You need to build the trust. Trust is important. And in order to that, the services that is being provided or to be provided needs to be at certain quality. And then, of course, innovation, continuous improvement is integral part of that triangle, those three main topics. And of course, important is also that company's culture, they match, not only in the ICT level, but also on the business level. So people need to interact, understand each other on different levels. And if that happens, then we have a very good foundation to do something, actually. So that's my thoughts on that.
No, sounds great. And I come back actually to that cultural fit topic a little bit later, but because you have been for a long time in this industry, you have seen all kinds of vendor relationships and partnerships and so forth. What would you say that are the biggest, let's say, limitations from the client's business perspective in regards to this kind of traditional transactional vendor relationships?
One of the biggest limitations for sure is kind of like the services companies provide. So if it's limited to a certain niche area, take an example of telecommunication, which I don't, from the nature of my background, I don't want to put it down. But anyway, it's certain limitation. Of course, they are growing, that they want to add value in other respects area. But I think that's one thing. If you have limited service portfolio, that's going to be challenging. Then of course, it is so that you understand both business drivers and values and what could be the outcome of putting the skin in the game, sharing revenue, or getting savings in some other areas that are really measurable. And then companies' top management are really sponsoring that as well.
So you basically say that really taking ownership about clients business objectives, having deep business understanding is obviously important, and not only providing limited silo-based services, but being able to provide services and resources and competencies in the right sense from the business perspective.
And that has been kind of like the challenge traditionally with the service integrators being in the silos, even though that they are a big company and big services, but it doesn't work end to end at the moment. So there's room to improve.
Yeah, we get back to that as well a little bit later. But hey, it was interesting when you said that of course trust and credibility are important in this kind of strategic partnerships, and you mentioned a couple of things, but cultural fit and strategic advice and quality of the basic services. But do you have any pragmatic tips that how can you together with the partners actually build trust and credibility?
Well, of course, if you talk about trust, it takes a long time to build the trust, and I would say that also in the times like we are using Teams a lot, I think that's a bit of a disadvantage to get to know the people. You need to know the people, also their background a bit, even their families, hobbies, etc. So that takes time, and throughout the organization. So it's not based on individuals that are doing the thing. Then of course, time will tell that if you give more services towards the vendor, they don't misuse kind of like the situation that they are in or the status that they are in. There has been a couple of examples that it has been really misused. the position. And also, if you don't get really, you should take time also with the strategic partnership, but you need to set also certain parameters, different parameters or measurements that, okay, at this period, first quarter, I measure these things, and then half a year or even longer, you set the measurements already in the beginning, but of course the sequence of the measurements are different.
So you talked about trust and credibility. What are components of trust and credibility from you? I mean, based on what kind of things the trust is being built, or in the worst case destroyed?
Well, of course, like I said, that the quality of the services, that you don't need to worry about that. If you give a big portion of the services to the service provider and you need to act as a one team, which could be written in the contracts and certain SLAs, and the SLAs doesn't matter that much overall, and the penalties. Of course, you need to have a good contracts. That's obvious. But when you see that people are going the extra mile out of their job description or out of their unit, and then you don't need to worry that much that they are part of your team. Very much integrated. And there I would like to say one thing, that this service integration and management is really important piece of a service, which some companies take actually lightly. And it will be even bigger in the future if we talk about strategic partnership, that these SIAM functions will deliver, because they are also taking care of the third parties, or they should take care of the third parties. And I think that maturity level in some companies is quite low at the moment still.
All right, hey, that's really interesting. So how do you see actually the role of leadership both in the client side and in the partner side in making this kind of partnerships happen?
Now, of course, it's really important, and of course, then you need to understand the company's metrics is from both sides, that how they are measured in a way, and how much they can actually spend some time. So we are Glaston, we are kind of like mid-sized company, and of course I need to be honest to myself that we don't get so much airtime or not the best resources. But for certain areas that are important for us, I expect that we get also the top people in order to make the services in a very quality way towards us. So I would say that these we talk about tactical meetings or strategic meetings. I think they need to also be very, very practical. They need to be good sequence, and whether it's head of the manufacturing unit or someone needs to be present and understand what is happening. So they need to have the pulse.
Sounds great. Hey, I go back to that. I mean, you mentioned that cultural fit is really important between client and partner organization. What does that actually mean in practice, and how do you develop actually joint culture?
First of all, I think you need to do the homework and understand the background. For us, we are small, but we are really international. So we need to have an international partner for once. We're small, so really maybe the big ones, all of them doesn't fit us, or they have a different kind of technological backgrounds. And of course, all the vendors and integrators, they have their pros and cons. But really understanding that, okay, is it short-term wins, or are we talking about kind of like a family business jointly? And that's really one thing that are on the other end of the other. So that is one thing. And then of course people sense about the others when they interact, that okay, does it feel like a family, or does it fit our culture, and so on. And also learning from the mistakes. I would say that when you talk about strategic partnership, you need to have a couple of dips, because it's also important to learn from those mistakes, and maybe even the partnerships get stronger when you together come out of those mistakes.
Yeah, that is definitely my experience as well, that I mean, big problems are best ways to actually build the credibility, build the trust when you react and you take those seriously. and you actually jointly resolve those problems. You don't actually start immediately, discussing the compensation or who is paying what, but you first solve the problem, and then you discuss that, okay, what are the maybe financial implications and other things as well. But hey, I mean, you obviously have long background, with the partnerships and vendor relationships. How do you see these partnerships evolving, going forward, and maybe a little bit also thinking from that perspective that what do you see that what will you actually expect from your business partners in the future?
Yeah, I think the competition among service integrators is already tough, but it's getting tougher, and everybody wants to have a bigger part of the value chain, and that is of course happening. Then of course the technology related to the cloud and different stacks, because IT will be from the socket pretty much in few years time. Hopefully I'm still there and not retired to see that. So and then that brings a different kind of demands for the service integrators, that you are not in the silos. So SAP is just one service. Forget about the capacity, forget about the networks. We are measuring the outcome. Then of course, for the long term, it's really important that we really measure jointly whether it's, like I said, savings or additional revenue, or we just put probably together kind of innovation funds that you and I think we have an experience of that jointly.
Absolutely.
And I still remember that very warmly, that we invest certain amount of money, and whether that comes additional revenue or savings, so the fund kind of naturally evolves and both get the share of that pie and of course invest more into that. So that's one practical example from the past, and I think it's still valid.
Absolutely, and by the way, we ate lunch together before we came here, and you actually said really great thing that resonated with me. You said that that it's not about doing only IT better and faster, but really making the business change happen. Having the business impact more quickly. And you said that IT is not usually the bottleneck, but the bottleneck is that how you actually, let's say, change business value, change customer experience, all those things.
Yes, and I think we discussed also about the end-to-end responsibility and understanding the end-to-end process. So for a company like us, we don't have an architect, or we don't have the business process people, or kind of service design people. And there when I think about partner, is that I'm buying also kind of extension of the arm from the partner in order jointly to do those things greatly. IT could be a bottleneck, but it's very seldom it's the technology itself. It's about people, and when you get the right people to do jointly together, great things happen. Also with the business people. So I kind of urge, when you ask about the kind of tips there, is that understanding the end-to-end processes towards kind of the wanted outcome for the future. How do we change? Many companies or people talk about the transformation, and it's a buzzword, and it's not only chasing the ERP towards SAP HANA. It's about much more in order to do maybe new service area or new business area as well.
Sounds great. All right. Hey, thanks a lot for great discussion. It was really great to have you here, and let's work together on building this kind of business partnerships.
Thank you, Jari. Pleasure to be here.